Hi, my name's Isaac, and this is a brand new Mazda CX-70. And today, I'm gonna review it for you guys. Now, some eagle-eyed viewers might be beginning to type, Isaac, wait a minute, isn't that just a CX-90? No, there's a little bit of a difference. The CX-70 only has 2 rows, and the CX-90 has 3 rows. Oh, so it's sort of like the difference between a Tahoe and Suburban. The wheelbase must be shorter. No, not quite. This has exactly the same wheelbase as the CX-90. Okay, so what's the difference? Isaac, corporate needs you to find the difference between these two pictures.
They're the same picture.
All right, that's not fair. There are differences between the CX-70 and CX-90. Though, honestly, not many. Very strange. I'm not 100% sure why Mazda didn't just make this the entry level of the CX-90 and say, hey, we'll give you a 2-row option or a 3-row option, but instead they've chosen to give it a different name, but that doesn't make it any less opulent and, frankly, very luxurious. So, without further ado, let's review the CX-70. Starting out up front on the CX-70, this is actually one of the ways you can tell it apart from the CX-90. The front end styling is slightly different between the two SUVs, but either way, I think they're both very sharp looking. You'll get full LED headlights here on the 70, full LED daytime running lights, and you'll get LED turn signals incorporated sort of into the grille in a very neat way. You'll have parking sensors that dot the front end, and then your Mazda badge doubles as a sensor for the safety system this is equipped with. And then below that, in the grille, you'll have a front camera. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we move to the interior. Moving underneath the hood, at first glance, there's not much to look at here. Thankfully, you can lift this plastic engine cover to actually reveal the engine. And that engine is a 3.3-liter turbocharged inline-6, making 340 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. And that is paired to an 8-speed automatic transmission. This CX-70 is a mild hybrid, which means it uses a small electric motor in addition to that gasoline engine to help with things like improving fuel economy. This isn't a full plug-in hybrid with fully electric range like some other vehicles. Speaking of fuel economy, this week I averaged just about 26 miles per gallon. Moving to the profile of the CX-70, this is a looker of an SUV. Mazda has knocked it out of the park with the styling here. I mean, this thing almost sort of looks like a BMW, especially when we get around back. I think it really does. And it just blows my mind that Mazda has come this far in its looks, in its styling, in its build quality. It is very impressive. Mazda, frankly, has become their own luxury brand over the years. Back in the 90s, they tried to start one and it didn't work out here in North America. Sort of similar to Infiniti or Lexus or Acura, but now Mazda's pretty much just a luxury brand on its own, which is pretty neat. Here on the wheels and tires, you'll get 275/45R tires around these 21-inch wheels, and then you'll have your inline-6 badge right there, blacked out mirror cap with a turn signal indicator incorporated in, a camera for the 360-degree camera system. There's blind spot monitoring. They are power adjusting and power folding. If I lock the car here with the keyless entry, I just tap that, it will fold the mirrors in. And then if I put my hand back here, it will fold the mirrors out to unlock the vehicle. Now moving to the rear here, I said a little bit ago that this sort of looks like a BMW, and it kind of does. It sort of has that BMW styling. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's really, really cool. It's a very, very nice look. Frankly, better than the BMW XM in a lot of ways. You'll have the CX-70 all-wheel drive badge right here, your Mazda badge, and then a backup camera and your eSky Active G badge. You'll have parking sensors here on the rear. And if properly equipped, the CX-70 can actually tow a pretty decent amount, which is quite impressive. And now to talk about getting into the rear here. So there are a couple different ways you can do it. You can swipe your foot. That will open up the rear lift gate. That's one way. And that will give you access into here. You'll have some LED lights. You do have the ability to drop the second row from back here. You have a power outlet, household power outlet, and a 12 volt, which is nice. And you might be saying, Isaac, why don't I just get the CX-90 and fold the third row down? Like, that's probably just about the same amount of storage space. And you are correct, it is just about the same amount of storage space, but you do have the added benefit here that if you pull this out, there is some extra storage underneath that you wouldn't get, of course, with that third row there. So Mazda hasn't necessarily skimped there. There is some added storage element in that capacity. And then down here, if we lift this up, you'll have a little spare tire kit. And then lifting this up, there is actually a donut down here, which is always nice to see. I prefer that to a fix-a-flat kit any day. But, you know, there are remnants you can see of that third row. There's like the little cup holder spots and stuff like that. But I still think it works. You get a ton of cargo volume here, and it's pretty spacious. Now, to close the lift gate, you can also tap this button up here. And then, of course, on the key fob, you do have the ability to open and close the lift gate from here as well. You'll also have lock, unlock, and panic. Mazda's fun. They do all their buttons on the side of the key, sort of like Kia. Maybe Kia or Hyundai does that. I can't quite remember if it's both of them or just one. But overall, it has a pretty nice exterior, and I think it looks great. What do you guys think? Let's take a look at the interior, and I think you're going to agree with me. It's pretty amazing. Hey guys, jumping in here real quick before we move to the interior, just to say I am trying to hit 40,000 subscribers before the end of this year. So if you like what you see so far, hitting the subscribe button would really help me out. But if you want to wait a little bit longer, suss me out a little bit more, see my impressions on the interior or the driving aspects of the car, that's okay too. In any case, if you decide to subscribe, thank you so much. All right, now back to the video. Wow, wow, wow. Oh my word. Look at the interior on the CX-70. This is incredible. It doesn't just give BMW a run for its money in the looks department on the exterior, it gives it a run for its money in the feel of the interior, and the build quality here is fantastic. This is very nice up here, as is this sort of faux wood trim here. You have this like synthetic suede material on the side of the door that also continues across the dashboard here. This is very comfortable to rest your arm. You'll have the stitching here. I mean, it's incredibly nice. You get my water bottle. Well, this one has my water bottle. This isn't included in every single one, but you get my point. It's very nice. I even love how the door trim here sort of connects to the climate vent. It's very impressive. But let's start by talking about all the buttons and the features in here. So for starters, you'll have your window controls, your mirror controls. You can power fold the mirrors from there if you'd like. Lock and unlock. You do have power seat settings with lumbar support. Down here, you'll have a host of buttons to control the memory settings, open up the rear lift gate, turn off some of your parking assist and safety system stuff if you'd like. Then you'll have your light controls. This does have power adjustment for the steering wheel. And then you do have a fully digital gauge cluster screen, as you can see here. I think it's pretty neat, though if I had to levy one complaint against it, there's not a ton of customization on the screen. There's a few things you can cycle through here on the side with your info button. You can do the drive mode selection, and that is going to change how it looks a little bit. You know, it'll change the dials. If we go down to off-road, it'll do something similar there. And if you activate like the radar guided cruise control, that does change some of the layout, but some gauge cluster screens nowadays have a host of customization options compared to this. And I do wish that it had a little bit more there, but overall, not terrible. Moving up, when you turn on the cruise control settings, they're not only going to display right here, they're also going to display on the digital heads-up display. I'll zoom into that so you guys can see it. That is very impressive. Relatively simple, all things considered, but it's cool that it includes it, and I think that is another nice luxury touch. The steering wheel is very comfortable here. I think it's just very nicely appointed. You'll have your volume, Bluetooth controls, source, and then the aforementioned radar guided cruise control. You'll have your start stop button right here, and then your hazards. And then this is your infotainment screen, but it is not a touch screen. It would be a little bit of a reach to be a touch screen from where you're sitting normally, but Mazda has included controls down here to navigate. And frankly, it actually works pretty good. I know a lot of people are like, I don't really like that. I would prefer if it was a touch screen, but you get used to this and you can see what you're doing out of the corner of your eye, and so you can just switch between buttons and different things, navigation, whatever you want to pull up fairly easily, and you can use this to control the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as well. Though, if you do want Apple CarPlay, at least CarPlay, perhaps Android Auto to be touchscreen, I know CarPlay does offer that, so this screen does have the ability to be a touchscreen if you want. But I actually think this works really well. The more you get used to this system, the easier it is. You can just sort of reach over as you're driving and really navigate quite well. I think it's a nicely laid out system. The aforementioned drive mode selector is here, and then this is your shifter. It's sort of on a ball axis, so as you shift between gears, you're actually not really moving the shifter other than on where it is at the access point. But if we have it in reverse here, you can see there is a very nice backup camera here. And if we use the dial, we can shift between a couple of different views. You'll also have this top-down view, which is very nice. I think that's very neat. And you get a wide-angle view if you want. It's very, very intuitive, and it works well. I think that's a neat addition, and I'm glad that a lot of cars nowadays have that 360-degree camera system. And then moving up here, you'll have an auto dimming mirror, your lights, and then you have a little sunglasses holder, and then a panoramic moonroof. Now, opening this up, a little disappointingly, that's as far as it opens. Like, that's less than the span of my thumb and pinky fully extended, you know. It doesn't open a ton here on the CX-70, but it is nice that it has the ability to open at all. And as we continue down here, you will have physical controls for your climate vents. You'll have heated steering wheel, heated seats, air-conditioned seats, and then all these physical buttons. Nice to see physical buttons. Then you'll also have wireless charging down there, a 12-volt. Cup holders are right there. And then moving past the controls for the infotainment, you can actually open up this center storage area in sort of a split design. It's very neat. So if the passenger wants to access it, they can just open that up and the driver can still rest their arm there. I think that is very useful. But other than that, the glove box, fairly spacious in here. That's pretty much the features here in the front seat of the CX-70. I think it's great. I mean, I think the layout here is very nice and very opulent. Moving to the rear seats, the luxury amenities don't stop up front. Down here you'll have climate vents, 2 USB-Cs, heated seats back here, and your own climate controls, which is very nice. And then on the door here you have this little screen that every minivan had in the early 2000s that you played with as a child, and I am still playing with right now. You also have the really nice sort of faux wood here and the suede material continuing to the rear doors. And one thing I like about these rear seats is if you want, you can actually move them forward right there. You can pull them forward and there's a lever and you can lean them back. So if you want to recline and spend some time on a long road trip in the back seats here, you can do that. You can also pull this back and they're still reclined a good deal. So giving yourself a little bit more leg room there. I would say at 5'9", I have probably about 4 or 5 inches of leg room and a good 4 inches or so if I'm sitting up, not reclined, maybe 3 or 4 inches of headroom. Definitely a space that you could comfortably seat 3 adults on a longer road trip. Whoopsie daisy, let me get that right about back where it was. And then you can fold this down if you don't want 3 adults, you only want 2. And you can fold this down for an armrest with cup holders. And of course you have the best view out of the panoramic moonroof right here. But these rear seats are nice. There's no skimping in the CX-70. Let's take this thing for a spin. All right, driving the Mazda CX-70, and apart from the strange naming convention, I think Mazda's done an excellent job with this SUV. I think it's fantastic. The driving experience is great. The seats are very comfortable. You just sink into them for long road trips, and I imagine the rear seats are equally as comfortable for those long road trips. And you get a decent amount of room back there. If you're looking for a third row, CX-90 is available, and it is essentially the same thing, and I would highly recommend that SUV as well. The steering around corners feels comfortable. The suspension is very, very nice. I love what Mazda has done there. It feels like a true luxury vehicle, and that's impressive. Like I said earlier, Mazda sort of had a luxury brand attempt in the 90s, and it didn't really end up happening. And it's just so funny to see that Mazda has sort of turned itself into a luxury brand, which I don't think many of us were expecting. But here we are, and I'm very impressed. I love the Miata, I love the 3, and I love the CX-70 and the 90. And it is definitely an SUV that I would recommend if you're looking for a larger one with a decent amount of space and you want to undercut some of the luxury competition. There's a lot of vehicles out there in this class right now, and the CX-70 I think stands out in the fact that it's gonna be less expensive than a BMW or a Mercedes that is equally equipped. And so if you're looking for something like that, yeah, you might not have the brand panache that you get with the other vehicles from Mercedes, BMW, Audi, for example, but you're gonna get a pretty similar driving experience and interior feel experience. This just feels very premium. All right, well, that's just about gonna wrap up this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. What do you think about the CX-70? Do you like it? Is it just a CX-90 rebadged? I wanna know your thoughts. You can leave those in the comments section below. And lastly, I like to always mention I'm a Christian. And if you have any prayer requests, you can leave those in the comments section below. And finally, I like to close out on a weekly scriptural reading. This week, I'm in the book of Proverbs, chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not rely on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight. All right, guys, take care. I'll see you next time. And remember, no matter what vehicle you drive, I hope it lasts you a long time and it serves you well.